I always thought I knew my husband better than anyone, and for years I convinced myself that the little cracks in our marriage were just part of life. Nothing serious, nothing I couldn't patch with patience, dinners and forgiveness. We'd been married for almost a decade, lived in a quiet suburb with neat lawns and neighbors who waved as we walked by. People saw us as the steady couple, the ones who had it all figured out. That's why, when his birthday rolled around this year, I wanted it to feel like proof to him, to our friends, to myself, that love was still there, strong and worth celebrating. So I spent the week planning a small party at home. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtful. I cleaned every corner of the house, ordered balloons, strung up fairy lights in the backyard, and baked his favorite red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting. I made lists: burgers and ribs for the grill, brioche buns, beer, especially the craft brand he always bragged about to his buddies. I even bought a new dress, not flashy, but something that made me feel like the kind of wife who belonged in the glossy snapshots people envy on social media. The night of the party, the house buzzed with life. Neighbors arrived with potato salad and chips. Our friends filled the backyard with laughter. Kids ran barefoot on the grass. The air smelled like barbecue smoke and sweet frosting, and music played from a speaker balanced on the patio table. He was the center of it all, hugging people, clinking bottles, joking loudly like nothing in the world could touch him. I watched him through the glow of the string lights, thinking, this is how it should always be. Him smiling, me proud, everyone around us believing in us. But even in the middle of the laughter, I noticed things that didn't sit right. He kept pulling his phone from his pocket, typing quickly, hiding the screen whenever I walked near. Once, I saw him slip toward the garage, speaking low and fast into the phone, his hand pressed against his ear like he didn't want anyone to overhear. When I asked him later, he brushed it off. Work stuff, babe. Relax. I told myself not to ruin the night, not to imagine shadows where there weren't any. I smiled when people said, "You two are the perfect couple," and I nodded like I believed it. The party wound down near midnight. Guests left, hugging me at the door, thanking me for hosting, telling me what a beautiful night it had been. I stacked plates in the sink, wiped frosting off the counter, and felt the tired ache of a woman who gave everything she could to make a night special. That's when he grabbed his jacket. "The guys are grabbing one last drink," he said, his voice casual, like it was nothing. "I won't be long." I remember blinking at him, exhausted, part of me wanting to say, "Stay. We had your party. Be with me," but instead I just nodded. "Don't be late." He kissed me quickly, smiled that familiar smile, and left. I showered, scrubbed the smell of smoke and grease from my hair, and crawled into bed, too tired to think. But hours passed. At 1 o'clock I stirred, checked my phone, no message. At 2 I called him, straight to voicemail. At 3 I walked the hallway, balloons brushing against my shoulder, the silence of the house pressing down on me. By 4, the worry turned to anger. I sat on the couch, arms folded, waiting. That's when I heard the door. It creaked open slowly, like even the hinges were guilty. He stumbled in, shoes scuffing the hardwood, his jacket half hanging off, his breath heavy with alcohol and something sharp and floral that wasn't mine. "Hey," he slurred, blinking like the hallway light was too bright. My chest tightened. "You're late," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He gave me a lazy shrug. "Lost track of time, celebrating, it's my birthday, right?" He tried to grin, but it didn't land. He sank onto the couch, head tipping back, and within minutes, his breathing evened into a drunken sleep. I stood there, arms crossed, watching him, 1,000 thoughts colliding in my head. Should I shake him awake? Demand answers? Or just let him sleep it off and fight in the morning? I pulled a blanket over him because love is habit as much as it is feeling, then turned to go upstairs. That's when I heard it, a faint buzz against the coffee table. His phone, half slipping from his pocket, screen lighting up in the dim room. I froze. It buzzed again, a vibration that seemed louder than the hum of the fridge, brighter than the streetlight pouring through the blinds. I stepped closer, intending only to turn it face down so I wouldn't hear it again. But then the preview lit up, just a few words, casual, cruel, undeniable. "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again." My throat went dry. I didn't gasp, didn't scream. I just went still, staring at the glow of those words, while he slept inches away, breathing easy, his secret buzzing right there in the open. And that's where the night ended for him. But for me, it was the moment the story really began. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds like nothing had changed, but I knew better. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out, my chest tight with the memory of that glowing message on his phone. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long gone cold, staring at the clock tick toward 9. Every sound of the house felt louder than usual. The hum of the fridge, the creak of a chair, the uneven rhythm of his snores from the couch. He finally stirred, groaning as he sat up, rubbing his eyes with the kind of carelessness that made me ache. I waited until he looked at me, his face swollen from sleep, the faint shadow of a smile crossing his lips as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Morning," he said, voice gravelly. I didn't answer right away. I pushed his phone across the table toward him, the screen dark now but heavy with everything I knew. "Who's texting you at 4 in the morning?" I asked, my voice calm, too calm. He blinked, confused, then too quickly. "What? No one. Probably work." "Work doesn't tell you last night was perfect?" I shot back, my fingers tightening on the mug. For a second he froze. Then he laughed, forced, dry. "You're reading too much into it. Probably a joke. You always jump to conclusions." That laugh, that dismissive tone, it made my skin crawl. "Don't do that," I said quietly. "Don't make me feel crazy." I saw it. His jaw tightened, and I saw the flicker of calculation in his eyes, the split second where he tried to decide which lie might stick. "It's not what you think," he said finally. "She's just a friend. Someone from work. We went out for drinks, that's it. Until 4 in the morning? With perfume on your jacket?" My voice cracked on the last word, anger and hurt twisting together. He sighed, rubbed his temples like I was the problem, not him. "I had too much to drink, okay?" I crashed on her couch. It was stupid, but nothing happened. "You know me." "That's the problem," I whispered. I thought I did. Silence spread between us, thick and choking. He shifted in his seat, restless, eyes darting everywhere but me. "Why are you doing this on the morning after my birthday?" He snapped suddenly. "Can't you just let things be? It was one night. Don't ruin everything over one stupid message." The audacity of it nearly knocked the breath out of me. "I'm not the one who ruined anything," I said, my voice sharp now. "You did, the moment you stepped out that door last night." His face hardened. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "I told you, nothing happened." But then I saw it, the twitch in his jaw, the way his hand curled into a fist on the table. It wasn't just guilt. It was fear. I leaned forward. "How long has this been going on?" His head snapped up. "What?" "Nothing's going on." "Don't lie to me," I pressed, my voice trembling with anger. "I can see it in your eyes. This wasn't the first time." He looked away, exhaled hard, and for a moment I thought he might actually tell the truth. But instead he muttered, "You're paranoid. You always have been." That word, paranoid, burned through me like fire. I'd spent years trusting him, defending him, telling myself the long nights and the work calls were real. And now he wanted me to believe I was crazy. I stood up, my chair scraping across the floor. "I deserve the truth," I said firmly. "Not excuses. Not lies." His eyes flashed with something I couldn't name: anger, desperation, shame. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and finally whispered, "It was just a mistake." A few drinks turned into something else. It didn't mean anything. My stomach dropped. There it was, the confession, small and cowardly, but enough to shatter the ground under my feet. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the man in front of me with the husband I thought I knew, the one I'd stayed up baking cakes for, the one I'd believed in even when he gave me reasons not to. "Not meaning anything doesn't make it hurt less," I said, my voice breaking. He stood then, reaching for me, his hands out like he could fix this with touch. "Please, baby, don't overreact." It was nothing, I swear. "It won't happen again." I stepped back. His hands fell useless at his sides. "You cheated on me," I said, the words tasting bitter and metallic on my tongue. "And you lied about it." "That's not nothing." He swallowed hard, eyes wet now, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear of losing everything. "Please," he whispered, "don't throw us away over one mistake." I laughed, sharp and hollow. "You threw us away." I just haven't decided what to do with what's left. The clock ticked, loud and merciless, as we stood there on opposite sides of the kitchen, the weight of the truth between us. He whispered again, softer this time, "I love you." And for the first time in years, I didn't believe him. I turned away, set my mug in the sink, and let the silence answer for me. But inside, something had shifted, and I knew the story wasn't over. Not yet. I wish I could tell you that after he confessed, after he said it was just a mistake, I believed him, that I let it go, that I somehow found peace. But the truth is, his words rattled in my head like coins in an empty jar. Nothing about them rang solid. They sounded rehearsed, too small for the weight they carried. And as I watched him shuffle through the day pretending life was normal, I knew deep down it wasn't. That night, when he finally fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan spinning shadows across the room. I replayed every late night he'd brushed off as work, every sudden out-of-town trip, every perfume trace I told myself I imagined. And I realized this wasn't a one-time thing. He hadn't stumbled into a mistake. He had built himself a secret life, one careless lie at a time. By morning, my anger had settled into something colder, sharper. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to beg. I was going to know the truth, all of it. So when he left for work, I opened his laptop. My hands shook as I typed his usual password, the one he never bothered changing, the one I'd always respected. But respect is for people who earn it. The screen blinked awake, and there it was. Email chains, messages, receipts. Dinner reservations for 2. Uber rides that didn't end at his office but at an apartment downtown. Hotel confirmations with check-in times that matched the nights he claimed he'd been stuck late. Each click cut deeper, every line of text peeling back another layer of the man I thought I married. I found photos too, tucked into a hidden folder, selfies of them together, her lips pressed to his cheek, his arm around her waist. He looked happy, not guilty, not ashamed, just happy. I closed the laptop so hard the sound startled me. I sat there on the edge of the bed, my whole body trembling, staring at the man's face in those pictures and wondering if I'd ever really known him at all. When he came home that evening, I didn't say a word. I cooked dinner, smiled faintly, asked about his day like nothing had shifted. He answered easily, weaving stories about office meetings, traffic jams, things I might have believed once. He didn't notice the way my hands shook when I set his plate down. Or maybe he did and didn't care. Over the next few days, I played the part of the quiet wife. But behind closed doors, I gathered more. I screenshotted the emails, printed the receipts, saved everything to a folder labeled insurance. I called Jenna, my best friend, and though my voice cracked when I told her, she steadied me. "Don't let him gaslight you anymore," she said. "You've got proof now. You've got power." Still, power doesn't feel like power when your heart is breaking. One night I followed him. He said he was meeting a client at a downtown bar. I parked 2 streets away, sat in my car with my pulse hammering, and watched him walk inside. I waited 15 minutes before slipping in, heart pounding, pretending to be just another woman grabbing a drink. And there she was, Claire, the woman I'd met at his party, sitting at the corner booth. He leaned in close, laughing, touching her hand on the table. It was like watching a movie I hadn't bought a ticket for, one where the villain wears your husband's face. I left before they saw me. I didn't need to see the rest. Driving home, my hands clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. By the time I pulled into our driveway, something inside me had shifted again. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was resolved. He wasn't going to admit the truth unless I forced him to. And when I did, I wasn't going to stand there empty-handed, begging for honesty. I was going to have the facts, the evidence, every ugly detail laid out like a mirror he couldn't look away from. That night, when he came home smelling like whiskey and her perfume, he smiled at me like everything was fine. I smiled back, kissed his cheek, and tucked away the last piece of proof into the folder hidden in my closet. He had no idea the storm I was preparing. I didn't plan the confrontation for days. Maybe because some part of me still hoped he'd walk through the door and confess on his own. That he'd look at me with the same honesty he used to carry when we were younger. But confession never came. Only more lies, more nights out, more perfume trails. So I chose my moment carefully. A Saturday morning when the house was quiet and the air still carried the faint scent of last night's dinner. He sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone, sipping coffee like a man who had no secrets. I stood across from him, folder in hand, heart beating like a drum I couldn't silence. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. He looked up, eyebrows drawn. "About what?" I slid the folder onto the table. Papers fanned out, emails, receipts, photos. His face drained of color as his eyes darted across the pages. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice tight. "Does it matter?" I shot back. "It's the truth, isn't it?" He pushed the folder back toward me, shaking his head. "You're invading my privacy. Your privacy!" I cut him off, my anger sharp now. "You lost the right to privacy the moment you invited someone else into our marriage." He leaned back, ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time I saw real panic flash across his face. "It's not what it looks like," I laughed bitterly. "Stop. Don't insult me anymore. I followed you. I saw you with her." His mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like words had abandoned him. "It's complicated," he whispered. "No," I snapped. "It's simple. You lied, you cheated, and you let me stand there, night after night, thinking I was crazy for noticing." Silence swelled between us, heavy and suffocating. He stared at the table, unable to meet my eyes, then finally muttered, "It wasn't supposed to happen. She listened. She made me feel—" "Don't," I said sharply, my voice breaking. "Don't you dare try to make this about what she gave you. You had a wife, you had me, and you threw it away for late-night drinks and cheap perfume." His eyes flicked up, desperate now. "I still love you. It doesn't mean I don't love you." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "Love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't sneak out at midnight. Love doesn't leave me staring at the ceiling wondering why I'm not enough." He reached across the table, but I pulled back, and the rejection landed like a slap. "Please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Don't leave. I can fix this. I'll end it with her. I swear." I stared at him, at the man I thought I knew, at the man who once promised forever under vows neither of us fully understood back then. "You already ended it," I whispered. "The moment you chose her over me." He dropped his face into his hands, groaning, and for a brief second I almost felt sorry for him, almost reached out. But then I remembered the message on his phone, the photos, the nights I cried alone while he was out working. My pity evaporated. "Pack a bag," I said finally. His head snapped up. "What?" "Pack a bag," I repeated, my voice calm, resolute. "You're leaving. Today." His mouth opened in protest, but the look in my eyes must have told him I was done being the forgiving wife. He stood slowly, hesitantly, like a man walking to his own execution. Upstairs I heard drawers opening, the muffled thud of a suitcase dragged from the closet. I stayed in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. My body shook, but not from fear anymore, from release. He came back down 15 minutes later, a small suitcase in his hand, his face pale and drawn. "Please," he said one last time, standing in the doorway. "Don't do this." "We can work it out." I shook my head. "You should have thought about that before 4 a.m. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he turned, opened the door, and stepped into the sunlight. The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I sank into a chair, tears spilling down my cheeks, not from weakness, but from the weight of finally letting go. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt a strange kind of peace. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. Secrets like his never stay buried. The first night without him was the hardest. I lay in bed staring at the empty space where he used to sleep, listening to the silence press in on me like a weight. No sound of his breathing, no rustle of the sheets, just emptiness. I thought I'd feel relief, and part of me did. But grief has a way of twisting itself around even when you know someone hurt you. I cried until the pillow was damp, not for him exactly, but for the years I thought we were building something real. The next morning I woke up to a phone buzzing on the counter. It was his. He'd left it behind in his rush to leave. For a moment I considered ignoring it, tossing it in a drawer, letting him figure out his own mess. But curiosity won. I opened it not to torture myself, but because I needed to know the scope of the life he'd hidden from me. What I found didn't shock me anymore. It only confirmed what I already knew. Dozens of messages, not just to her, but to others. Names I didn't recognize, women I'd never met. He hadn't just betrayed me once. He'd made a pattern of it, weaving lies through our entire marriage. And suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights, the trips, the unexplained expenses. My whole marriage wasn't a story of one mistake. It was a story of constant betrayal. I sat there, phone in my hand, my chest rising and falling with something that wasn't grief anymore. It was clarity. When he came by later that afternoon, knocking softly on the door, suitcase still in hand like he hadn't moved an inch, I didn't hesitate. I opened the door just wide enough to look him in the eyes. "You forgot this," I said, handing him the phone. His face changed, pale and nervous. "Did you?" "Yes," I said flatly. "I saw everything, all of it." He opened his mouth, but no excuse came. He knew it was useless now. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head. "You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed everything we had, and I'm not carrying that weight for you anymore." He begged then, really begged, right there on the porch where neighbors could see, his voice shaking, his eyes wet. But I didn't flinch. I closed the door, slowly, deliberately, and let the lock click into place. Inside, I stood still, breathing deeply, my heart pounding but steady. For the first time in a long time, the power was mine. Over the next weeks, I began to rebuild. I filed for separation, changed the locks, opened my own bank account. I leaned on friends who reminded me I wasn't alone, who showed up with wine and laughter and shoulders to cry on. And little by little, the cracks in me started to feel less like wounds and more like scars, proof that I'd survived. One night, Jenna and I sat on the back porch where the string lights from his birthday still hung, swaying gently in the breeze. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Throwing him out?" I thought about the years we shared, the memories that felt so solid once and now seemed like smoke in my hands. "No," I said finally. "I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it. But I don't regret letting go. Because here's the thing. You don't realize how heavy betrayal is until you set it down. You don't realize how much space lies can take up until you clear them out. And when you do, you see yourself again, clearer, stronger, standing in the light of your own truth. My story didn't end the night he walked out. It started then. It started with me choosing myself over his lies, my peace over his chaos. And maybe that's the point, for anyone listening who's ever been lied to, betrayed, made to feel crazy for noticing. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're seeing what they hope you won't. And you don't have to stay. You can choose differently. You can choose you. So I'll leave you with this. Would you forgive a betrayal like that? Or would you do what I did and close the door for good?